Good evening, and welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families.
And I'm Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families, and we are excited to have you join us for the next 30 minutes as we talk about the good, bad, and ugly of relationships. A huge shout out to our sponsors, La Rosa's and Buffalo Wings and Rings in Greendale, Indiana, Greendale Cinemas, and Maxwell Construction. We are so thankful for these local businesses who have made this show possible. So whether you are listening live or online, Rock Solid Radio, helping to strengthen our community one family at a time on your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3. Good evening. Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. This is Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families. And tonight, we've got a challenging topic.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We are going to kind of get down and dirty, so to speak, about our topic today. What's our topic about, hon? You want to go ahead and break the news?
Yeah, this is one of those topics that affects marriages and families, and it's a tough topic, but it's in the forefront of really the destruction of a lot of relationships, a lot of lives, and we're talking about the tough topic of pornography.
Yeah. And you know, it has morphed and changed so quickly with the advent of the internet and computer use that it's like a blazing fire that is moving at a rate that we can't really grasp.
Yeah.
So, we're going to tackle this subject. Yeah. And, you know, our goal is not to come off as being prudish or anything like that. We're going to talk about the facts, and we're going to talk about really what happens with this viewing of pornography to the level of even addiction.
Yeah. And this might not be an area that you personally struggle with, so before you turn us off, we really want to talk about the effects of pornography in the sex industry that is rippling out among our families and throughout society today. Did you know, honey, that pornography is the single largest industry in the world?
Yeah,
and the sex industry.
Coming through that stat is just crazy, and it's just the rippling effect. Well, we're going to talk about that today in our show.
Please stay tuned.
So, hey, before we go on to all of that, let's talk. Let's give a big shout out and thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to Maxwell Construction, Buffalo Wings and Rings, Greendale Cinemas, and La Rosa's Pizza. Yeah. Guys, we want to thank you for your continued support of Rock Solid Radio. Yeah. You are helping us to get a message out in our local community. And, you know, it's making a difference. And just, our phone continues to ring. The services that we can help people with are growing. And a lot of that is due to people helping us with sponsorship. Yeah. So we want to thank you guys for that.
Absolutely. We appreciate those local businesses who are so community-minded. Hun, talk about the parenting series that you've got coming up.
Yeah, well, you know, so we did the parenting series, and our first class got canceled.
The weather.
Yes, due to
not
weather.
Been the greatest.
Due to weather. So, and that one was grandparents raising grandkiddos. So, if you are interested in that, contact us. You know, even if it's a one-on-one situation, we'd love to work with you and kind of walk you through a system of how to view your new job and your responsibility.
Yep. Yep.
Beyond that, on February 27th, we have When School is Tough. Yep. Looking forward to that one. Again, these are all at Bright Elementary in the library at 6:30 to 8 o'clock. On March 13th, we are Parenting in a Tech-Heavy World, which is going to be a little bit connected to tonight's show.
Absolutely,
of what woes us in the technology world.
Yeah.
And then April 24th, Who's the Boss in Your House? Kind of reestablishing what our role is an authoritative parent. So can't wait for that. And how about you talk a little bit about your Healthy Boundaries class?
Yeah, well, we just started this past Wednesday, but we still have room if this is something that is important to you. If you are looking for how to have healthy relationships, maybe the topic tonight really hits a chord, or maybe you're just struggling with how to set up some healthy parameters in the relationships around you, we'd love for you to join us. It's Wednesday nights at Whitewater Crossing Christian Church in their Life Center. It's from 7 to 8. So you can contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org, and we'll give you some more information on the details of that. So absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so good stuff. We continue to offer our finishing fitness classes. So please, if you are interested in getting a little bit more fit, even personal training, contact me. We can help you get set up to making a better you.
Yeah, you know, the weeks we've had this horrible weather, it's amazing how driven people are to still get out because one, the cabin fever, and two, they just need to move. And so it's just been really cool to see the group of men and women that have come, even teens, that are working out with us and just feeling better and fit.
Yeah, we had like one day here recently where it popped to 60 degrees and it was like ants coming out of the anthill. Everybody had to get out.
Yeah.
So, hey, so why are we wanting to really tackle this subject? You know, everybody has an opinion and a view on this. And
talk about pornography, if you just tuned in.
Right. And so why do we want to tackle this?
Yeah.
Because there's so many different levels of pornography viewing.
In the sex industry, per se.
Right.
Yeah.
And it, you know, we have become so desensitized to this whole idea of the exploitation of the human body that I can't watch a Super Bowl game without a great revealing of the body, whether it's male or female, right? And again, you know, I don't even flinch at some of the stuff I see anymore because I've seen it so often.
Where it made your parents roll over.
Yes. Oh, I remember, you know, my dad, like, this is ridiculous. And yet at that time, you had to get up off of the couch.
There was no such thing as remote.
Yeah, and turn the channel. So, so what is happening and why do we want to tackle this?
Yeah, it's breaking up our families, our marriages. You know, gone are the days where as an adult or teen, someone was sneaking a dirty magazine into their home or back in the woods behind their house. You know, now it's at your fingertips. Every adult, every teen, and unfortunately every child has access to something that is totally inappropriate and damaging and destructive to their lives at just a click.
Yeah. And so let's talk about some of the stats, just to kind of support the case here. But, you know, one of the things that we find, and every once in a while you'll find somebody that will report an article or some research that says pornography is not bad. Let me tell you, those are few and far between because there are just scads and scads of articles and research that talk about the woes of pornography. So, you know, if you want to, needle through and find that occasional article that maybe
says
finds
not bad,
that's not bad, fine, you can cherry pick that. But the research and the stats are very solid.
Yeah. You know, 30% of all data transferred across the internet right now is porn. One stat I even found said half of all internet content is porn or porn-related content. That is crazy, and it just shows you it's at our fingertips.
Yeah. You know, this one just kind of blown me away that the porn industry makes more money than the NFL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball combined.
Yeah.
They make more than ABC, CBS, and NBC combined.
That's crazy.
Just think about that. There's no like one sort of place to go. It's everywhere.
Yeah. It's the largest, it's the fastest growing industry, the porn industry in the world, with a net worth of $97 billion. And the U.S., it's coming in just alone in the U.S. over $10 billion.
Yeah.
So it's definitely all around us.
Yeah. You know, and some of the things that happen, you know, there are some that choose to partake in the actual production of pornography, but, you know, many do not. And that's where the human trafficking and human slavery, that market is just gone crazy.
Yeah.
And you hear the term slavery, you think that is so far past us. That's back in the 1800s and earlier. And there's a whole different level of slavery.
Yeah.
And I watched a show last night on it that was just incredible, the amount of human slavery in this country.
Yes. Yeah.
For this market.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
They were just talking about that with the Super Bowl and the amount of sex trafficking that was going to go around. And, you know, guys, if you think pornography doesn't have any harm to it, just remember that every click you make is a demand for traffickers and pimps and leads to abuse and trauma. Pornography preys on the young and the vulnerable because they're the easiest targets. So you might think, oh, I'm just doing this in the privacy of my own home for my own pleasure. It's not. It fuels the industry. That is why it's the largest in the world.
Yeah, the average age of a child's first exposure to porn is 11.
Yeah.
But no, let me make a statement on it. That's probably not changed all that much, just because I remember being 11. And I remember that first girly magazine, okay, that me and my buddies thought that was really something else.
Did your mom and dad know?
They did not know, right? And we knew that if they did know, that we'd be in trouble.
Absolutely.
Okay, in other words, there was still very much a boundary on that our parents had.
Right.
And so here's my point with that. The desire is somewhat biologically triggered. All of a sudden we hit puberty and we have an interest, and it's a very physical interest, but it crosses over into this whole addiction, exploitation, whatever it takes to get to help me fulfill this addiction.
Yeah, that just reminds me, hon, and I didn't even think about this till you said it, but that is true. And so for young men and young women, if you're a parent out there, there's 2 books out there that we had around that helped our young boys, our oldest 2. It's called Every Young Man's Battle and Every Young Woman's Battle. And it talks about those urges that come on with puberty and how to handle them in a healthy way to prevent this kind of thing happening and going out of control. So I really encourage you to look those up. Every Young Man's Battle, Every Young Woman's Battle. They did it in our church with a bunch of, prepubescent boys and girls in small groups. You could do it with your son or daughter one-on-one. But I really encourage that because it is a huge issue. Every second of the day, I couldn't believe this, there are over 30 million unique visitors viewing porn. Every second of the day, over 30 million unique visitors viewing porn. Well, that is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's an international problem.
Yes.
It's not just here. You're located in the great old USA. So, I think by and large, the whole pornography topic gets steered towards a man issue, maybe a man problem.
It's
not. But, we have definitely seen in our work that it's definitely not a solely man issue.
Yep.
The amount of women that are involved in watching and searching out pornography. 76% of all women in the ages of 18 to 30 years of age report to watching porn at least once a month.
Yeah.
Now, we're not, I don't know the definition of that porn, whether it's soft porn or hard porn or whatever, but the idea that there's an active seeking is a little bit scary.
I think it goes a little bit, hon. We talked about love languages last week, and we talked about how women, educated women especially, are waiting longer to marry. And so this sexual drive that they have is not being fulfilled at the age that it was, at age 20, 21, 22, even when they were younger, back in the pioneer days, it was 15, 16 years old. But, now these ladies are finding other ways to satisfy. And so, for instance, the 50 Shades of Grey series, the books, the movies, that's soft porn.
Right.
And the erotica that comes from that is just so unhealthy that for men or women, it's not just a men's issue, but it's something that we need to address and talk about.
Right. And so, why is pornography bad? Why is it what we would call a sinful thing, all right? And the simple definition that I always think about is sin. Well, what is sin? Sin is stuff that hurts. It hurts people. And you don't have to tell a couple who's married that when one of them starts cheating on the other, you don't have to tell them, now you should hurt. It hurts naturally.
Yep.
And so let's talk a little bit about,
What it hurts.
What it hurts. There are some women who report that they don't mind their husbands or boyfriends viewing porn, but by golly, that is not even close to what most women report. Most women report that it's a feeling of like he's having an affair.
Yep.
And so that's a painful feeling.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep. For sure. It makes the spouse feel inadequate, unattractive. That's why a lot of husbands will secretly do that after the wife goes to sleep or at work. Do you know that porn is and I forget the statistic, between 8 and 5 in the evening. I mean, it's a work day. Like, so at their workstation, on their phone, at work, at lunch or whatever, these men, a lot of times, women too, are sneaking away. They know it's not what we should do professionally or personally, but they have this need that they're fulfilling in a very addictive, destructive way.
That's a whole nother show talking about stewardship and use of our time and our gifts.
Yeah.
So the whole idea that let's jump into the concept of addiction just for a second. So addiction, pornography starts to run this course and turns into an addiction. And so what's an addiction? And so we've talked about that a little bit before. It's that whole change in our brain chemistry that we're seeking pleasure. And we know that the neurotransmitters of dopamine and serotonin start to get overly released. And dopamine is a feel-good neurotransmitter. And we know that when viewing pornography, we have an excess amount of dopamine that's secreted. The problem with that, just like any dope that we use, we have to keep increasing it to get
enough.
that level.
Right.
And so the crazy thing that happens with men in pornography or women is that once we start, we have to keep upping the ante.
Yep.
All right, and so now the expectation, even we hear stories when we're working with couples. It started that the man just was looking at some porn by himself.
Yeah.
And then he starts trying to introduce his wife or girlfriend to it because he's thinking, well, this could only even be more interesting.
Right.
And that gets a little bit strange for her because she's thinking at this point she actually becomes a sex toy.
Right. And if she rejects that, then he goes to strip clubs.
Yes.
He engages in prostitution. And again, this is not just males, females too. But that's where it gets very sad and destructive. You know, there is this increased sexual boredom that occurs in both men and women, causing relational difficulties, lower self-esteem in both the perpetrator and the victim. It's just a destructive addiction that is really running rampant because of our digital age.
Yeah. And behind all of this, why does this continue? Well, it's a money-driven,
absolutely.
It's a pleasure-driven industry. And so we see that girls and guys, but probably a lot of girls in the slavery aspect of it, get trapped because of the amount of money they can make.
Yep.
It's relatively quick money. It's almost a form of prostitution in terms of how that money comes about. And so for that reason, they can find themselves trapped. Maybe they come from an impoverished way of life, and now they're making money, and it's a place that they feel like, hey, this is working for me.
Yeah.
But they get trapped, and that's that slavery part.
And you know, again, this was so foreign to me because, as you said earlier, Hun, slavery I felt like was back in the days of the Civil War.
Yeah.
And that it's no longer. It is so rampant right in our backyard, in downtown Cincinnati, in Cleves, Ohio, in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Girls that are maybe homeless, feeling under-resourced with their family. They've burnt every bridge. Maybe there's another addiction, a drug addiction, an alcohol addiction. And to feed that addiction, they sell themselves for sex to a person who has this addiction of pornography or the sex industry, and they're feeding that addiction. It distorts and perverts a healthy attitude towards sex, toward intimacy, toward relationships. I cannot tell you enough. If you are listening out there in Eagle Country right now and you have felt like porn doesn't hurt anybody or it's just something I do for fun, it is not, and it will dig you into a hole so deep you can't get out of.
Yeah, and we see it all the time, and it doesn't start off with that intent, but it gets there. Yeah. So, okay, well, all right, we've talked a lot about the history, the stats behind it. So let's talk about, all right, so let's say that there's an issue of porn in the relationship or in the family. And so what do we do? You know, maybe you're hearing this and you're thinking, my gosh, this is in my house right now. And I have felt like it's not right, but now you're getting confirmed that it's not right. So
it's
what
not
do you
just
do?
with your marriage, by the way. It could be your children.
Yeah.
If you have preteen, teenagers, you better keep an eye out what's going on. I pray that you are monitoring and filtering what's going in your home, what's going out on their phone, that you are looking at their texts, that you're looking at the sites and their Google searches and their Google history. It's everywhere.
Yeah. So what do we do? Let's move through this a little bit. First off, you know, as a Christian and in hearing this, we have been so soft on creating absolutes in our life. Like, I absolutely won't do that. I absolutely won't do drugs, or I absolutely would never hurt somebody in this situation.
Because you have free will,
Right.
they say.
Well, yeah,
Right.
and at some level, we use this moderation, all things in moderation, right? And so some things need absolutes. Some things need absolutes. And when we're talking about pornography, the very first step that we're going to encourage you to do is you have to make a statement in your mind and say, I absolutely am not going to tolerate this garbage in my life and in my house and in my relationship. I absolutely am not going to. All right. And so softening that up does not make it right, because it just opens the door.
Which is what the world is doing to us. Like you mentioned the Super Bowl a few weeks ago. Like that, that's crazy. That's what we're being thrown at every day, all day, wherever we are at.
Right. And so let's talk a little bit about what we do in our relationship, and just to create the foundation to move forward here. First off, if you know in your mind that there's a pornography issue, you have to confront it.
Yeah.
The very first thing, you have to absolutely say, no, this is not, I'm not going to buy it. That is good to have, and even at a little level, it's okay. But then once we've identified, we have to confront it.
Right.
Okay?
In a confidential, respectful way.
Sure.
You don't call somebody out on social media. You don't say it in front of their friends. You deal with it personally, whether it's a child, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a friend, that it's something that, or a coworker or an employee. You got to do it. Yeah.
Right. And so, because our goal in any relationship is not to get people defensive.
Right.
So how would I go about confronting that? And ladies, from your point of view, when I work with ladies, oftentimes I get the men first, and I hear about the pornography use. And so when I'm in a coaching session, I make the man be quiet for just a second and say, I need you to sit, and I need you just to listen here. And then I point blank say, how does this make you feel to the lady?
Right.
And, in his mind, he wants to jump out right away and come to a defense. And I've never had a lady say, this pornography is okay with me, and it makes me feel fine.
I enjoy this, yeah.
And so when he gets uneasy with wanting to defend, I just hold him back, and I say, no, I need you to listen.
Right.
I need you to listen to exactly what she's saying.
Yeah.
Okay? So one of the very first things, if we confront, before we confront, we also need to know that we are in here for the good of the relationship, not the individuals. Again, you and I talk about this all the time. Yeah. We all want pleasure seeking in our life, but we have to say, you know what? If this is really hurting my spouse, my partner this much, I need to listen to them.
And we need to do things to protect the marriage. So one of the things is to put filters on your home computer. We have worked with so many couples who have taken steps. The husband has identified, yes, this is a struggle for me, and I don't want to do this anymore, but I keep getting drawn back to it. There is a lot of great resources out there. One of the ones that I have heard a lot of couples work with is called the XXX Church, XXX. I can't remember the exact website.
I think if you look up XXX Church, you'll find it.
xxxchurch.com. It's a resource online for pornography addiction. It focuses on awareness, prevention, recovery. That is something that would give an accountability partner where literally if they went on, somebody would be notified. And so I've seen a lot of couples who've said, okay, we want to put this on our computer.
So once we confront it, and once we then start to place limits on it, like on our computers and phones and those kind of things, the next idea is that to work on the relationship, we have to go back and say, hey, why does this hurt you? Why am I seeking it? Okay? And talk about what each other's needs are.
Right.
We talk about this all the time. The man needs versus the female needs are very different, right?
Yep.
And there's books written on it and everything else. That whole idea that your emotional connection is of great need. Feeling loved, feeling romance, those are your connections. Those are the things that cause pleasure to you. And the male, not that he doesn't like some of that, but he's more physically wired.
Right.
And so coming to the idea that we both start to have discussion about why is he seeking that.
Right. Which we don't justify at all, the addiction.
No. Because, again, it's sin, right? Your pleasure is causing her pain.
Yep.
That's why it's a no-no.
Yeah.
All right.
And this is something that is tough topic. And it's one that's super personal. People don't like to talk about it. They don't like to really share it with others. But I would really encourage you to seek some outside counsel on this. If you have a pastor, I've known a lot of men who have confided in their pastor. You know, being on staff at a church for 20 years, I've worked with a lot of couples, and it started with the guy going to his pastor. And so please seek some outside counsel, a counselor, a sex therapist that honors your Christian foundation. Call us at Rock Solid Families, 812-576-ROCK or rocksolidfamilies.org, and we'll connect you. If we're not the right fit for you, we will find who is. So
yeah, you know, so is this just Merrill and Linda jumping on some soapbox and trying to be self-righteous? Guys, please, you know, that is not a direction. We want to be as far from self-righteous as can be. Like I said before, we know it is sinful because of the pain that it causes.
Yeah, we've seen the destruction.
And so that we've had our stance on this become even more solid because of the damage. Yeah. And so scripturally, you know, this is not a new problem. This is Christ addressed it in Matthew 5:28. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery, all right, with her in his heart. And so, again, I mean, this is not a new concept.
Right.
This is one that lets us know that this is going to lead to a problem.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah. 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, "No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man." This is common.
Yeah.
God is faithful, though, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it. There is a way out.
Yes.
There is help. There is hope. So please do not say, "Oh, well, this is just how I'm wired."
Yeah.
It's not have to be that way.
So let's run through our challenge for the week.
Absolutely.
All right. So this week, our challenge for you in your home, in your marriage, is to, first off, let's have a check-in. Let's check in with each other and have a little discussion about how we feel about this topic and what it is in our home.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even with your teenagers.
If this is not an issue, great. But yeah, just like you said, how about with the kids?
Yeah.
How about your younger ones? Are they being just overly exposed to the point that they're becoming desensitized?
Yeah.
So let's first delve into the topic.
And make sure you have healthy boundaries and protect your marriage and your family. Kind of have that line in the sand, like, we will not have this in our home. We will not watch this. We will not listen to that. You know, if you need help with healthy boundaries, remember our class is on Wednesday nights from 7 to 8 at Whitewater Crossing. We'd love to have you.
Great class, by the way, for this subject.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if one of you acknowledges, then, you know, then it's time. Don't let it continue to fester. The buildup of resentment and guilt and frustration has destroyed more than one marriage. We've seen it happen.
Yeah. And so, you know, once you acknowledge that it is an issue, all right, that it is in your home, then, like we said, confront it.
Yep.
As you said, get some help.
Yep.
Call us up at Rock Solid Families.
Yep.
You know, if nothing else, our challenge for you is to just do a little research on the porn industry and the exploitation.
Yeah.
Figure out a little bit, or do you want to be a contributor to this exploitation? All right, because that in itself is just a crazy, sinful thing.
It's time we stop the demand for porn. Let's call it what it is, the reality of it. You know, let's help put an end to something that addicts people, destroys relationships, affects our society as a whole. It's time we stop pretending porn is okay and it doesn't hurt anybody. Again, I mentioned xxchurch.com. Fight the New Drug, which is actually fightthenewdrug.org, is a non-religious, non-profit organization that really dispels the myths around pornography. And then Celebrate Recovery, Hun, which is nationwide, a 12-step program that focuses on these habits and addictions and hurts that really affects our nation and our families.
All right. Well, with all of that, we've put a tough subject to rest, right?
Yeah.
Or at least we started to put a nail in that coffin.
Or at least start the discussion.
Yeah. So, hey, we want to close out. Again, we want to thank our sponsors, Maxwell Construction, Buffalo Wings and Rings, Greendale Cinemas, and La Rosa's Pizza. Guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. As always, make it a great night and make it a great week.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. For help or more information about what you've heard this evening, contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org or call us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-ROCK. Again, a huge thanks to our sponsors, La Rosa's and Buffalo Wings and Rings in Greendale, Indiana, Greendale Cinema, and Maxwell Construction. If you have questions you'd like answered on air or want to chime in on something you heard this evening, go to our Facebook page, Rock Solid Families. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to tune in next Sunday evening at 7:30 for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and for my husband Merrill and I, thanks for tuning in on your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3.